Special announcement. There is a anti-war, anti-NATO rally taking place next week on February 25th in central London. I will be speaking there along with George Galloway, former MP, and former MP Chris Williamson, Max Blumenthal, Anya, and it's going to be really great. And if you guys can attend, please do. Here is the official flyer. So it's between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. Again, central London on the 25th of February. So that's in just about a week. Claire Daly and Mick Wallace will also be there, but I think remotely. Craig Murray's also going to be there. Low-key, Ruben Lawrence, David Miller, Dan Kovalik, Audrey White. So you can see the whole list here. Fiona Edwards, Peter Ford, Andy Hudd. And again, you know, as the name implies, no to NATO and no to war. And I believe there's an equal equivalent going on in the United States tomorrow in Washington at the Lincoln Memorial. So February 19th. And I think that one's called Rage Against the War Machine. We're having our own anti-war, anti-NATO march and event in London. So be there if you can. And I think it's very important to remember, you know, just 20 years ago, but on February 15th, so it was a few days, right? A few days passed. There was the 20th anniversary of this. You guys remember this huge protest in London? 1 million people in the streets against the war in Iraq. You know, it's in that spirit that we are holding this and remembering that, you know, there was a time where people came out, and that was the biggest protest in Britain's history. So it's in that spirit that we have to keep this going, because there's no anti-war movement. There's nothing left of it, unfortunately. You know, over the years, it's kind of disintegrated, and I'm not saying it's the organizers' fault or something. No, it's just that, you know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and the mainstream media is very good at brainwashing people. Now, I don't know everyone who's going to speak at the rally on the 25th. I don't have to. I'm going to speak there, and I'm going to do my thing. And it's come to my attention, there are people who are, you know, in the American one, especially the one that's taking place tomorrow, they're you know, they're always complaining about, oh, I don't like that speaker. I don't like the party that organized the anti-war rally. That guy's not really anti-war. She's not really anti-war. Yeah, okay, so guess what? People who are on the receiving end of the U.S. war machine, they don't have the fucking luxury to cherry pick who is going to be anti-war and who's going to stand with them against the bombs that are falling on them. They don't have this luxury for cancel culture. Maybe you do, because you're sitting comfortably in the West and you don't have any family in the Middle East or in Russia, Ukraine, or in Africa, or in Latin America, or countries that have suffered from sanctions, or you don't know anyone there, or you've never been there, or, you know, they don't have this luxury. Maybe you do, but the people on the receiving end of U.S. corporate militarism, they don't have this luxury. So no one fucking cares about your litmus test and who you think is good enough to speak at the anti-war rally, or if they're left or right. I really don't give a shit. This is my thing. This is what I do best, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to do my best. So, you know, I don't care, you know, obviously, and there are red lines, of course. You know, if the Israelis invited me to speak, which I doubt that, I'm not going to go, right? If some Nazis invited me to speak, which I also doubt, I still wouldn't go, obviously. There are red lines. But I think that efforts to kind of sow dissent between these anti-war rallies, it stinks. It stinks and reeks of the FBI handbook, right? The COINTELPRO. This is what they would do. They would go and, you know, they would break up black liberation movements, feminist movements, socialist movements, anything they don't like, anything. They would break them apart by doing this kind of shit. Like, that guy was stealing money from our fund. Or he said this thing and he did that thing. And they just cause infighting with each other. That's it. That's the best way to break these things apart. So don't do their work for them. Why are you doing the FBI's work? Why are you doing MI5's work? Why are you making their job easier? Right? That doesn't mean everybody who complains is necessarily with the FBI, but I'm saying you're making their job easier. You absolutely are. You absolutely are. Let me read you. I think Chris Hedges made a very compelling case about this point. And I want to read you what he put out. So he said there are no permanent allies, only permanent power. He says, if we do not build left-right coalitions on issues such as militarism, healthcare, a living wage and union organizing, we will be impotent in the face of corporate power and the war machine. So he says that he's going to speak at the rally tomorrow, the one that I told you about. He said that he's going to be joined by Ron Paul, right libertarian anti-war figures whose political and cultural opinions I often disagree with. The inclusion of the right wing has seen anti-war groups that I respect, such as Veterans for Peace, refuse to join the rally. Veterans for Peace issued a statement sent to me on Friday saying that to endorse this event would have caused a huge disruption in VFP and had little effect on the outcome of the demonstration. The board of Code Pink asked its co-founder, Medea Benjamin, on one of the nation's most important and effective left-wing and anti-war activists, to cancel her scheduled talk at the rally. Nick Brana says the left has become largely irrelevant in the United States because it is incapable of working with the right. And again, he's from the People's Party, which organized the rally with libertarians. So I have no affiliation to either of them. But I've seen people complaining, oh, I don't like the Libertarian Party organizing this. Oh, I don't like that. Who gives a fuck? Are you anti-war and against NATO or not? Just come or don't come. Like, it's very simple. But he says here that it clings to identity politics over jobs, healthcare, wages, and war, and condemns half the country as deplorables. Yeah, that sounds about right. Chris Hedges writes that we will not topple corporate power and the war machine alone. There has to be a left-right coalition which will include people whose opinions are not only unpalatable but even repugnant, or we will remain marginalized and ineffectual. This is a fact of political life. Alliances are built around particular issues, in this case, permanent war, which often fall apart when confronting other concerns. If I had organized the rally, there are some speakers I would not have invited. This doesn't mean that there are no red lines. I would not join a protest that included neo-Nazi groups such as Aryan Nations or militias such as the Proud Boys or Oath Keepers. Chris Hedges continues to write that my father, a Presbyterian minister who was an army sergeant in North Africa during World War II, was a member of concerned clergy and laity about Vietnam, an anti-war group that included the radical Catholic priests Philip and Daniel Berrigan. He took me with other clergy, almost all veterans, to anti-war rallies. There was much in the anti-war movement that he and other members of the religious groups opposed. From the Yippies, who put forward a 145-pound pig named Pegasus the Immortal as a presidential candidate in 1968. That's really funny. To groups such as the Weather Underground that embraced violence. He and other clergy disliked the widespread drug use and propensity of some protesters to insult and bait the police. They had very little in common with the Maoists, Stalinists, Leninists, and Trotskyites within the movement. Daniel Berrigan, one of the most important anti-war activists in American history, who was constantly in and out of jail and spent 2 years in federal prison, opposed abortion, a stance that today would probably see him deplatformed by many on the left. These clergy understood that the masters of war were their real enemy. Thank you. They understood that the success of the anti-war movement meant forming alliances with people whose ideologies and beliefs were far removed from their pacifism, abstemious lifestyles, and Christian faith. When I was about 12, my father told me that if the war was still going on when I turned 18 and I was drafted, he would go to prison with me. The jolt of that promise has remained with me my entire life. The demands of the Rage Against the War Machine rally are ones I share. They include not one more penny for war in Ukraine, negotiate peace, stop the war inflation, disband NATO, global nuclear de-escalation, slash the Pentagon budget, abolish the CIA and military-industrial deep state, abolish war and empire, restore civil liberties, and free Julian Assange. Hedges says, I know war. I spent 2 decades reporting on conflicts all over the globe, including many months in Gaza, the world's largest open-air prison, containing 2 million people, including over 1 million children. I saw thousands of lives destroyed by the United States military adventurism in Central America, Africa, and the Middle East. Dozens of people I knew and worked with, including Kurt Schork, a Reuters reporter, and a Spanish cameraman, Miguel Gilmoreno de Mora, died violent deaths. We must halt the decades of rampant and futile industrial killing. This includes ending the proxy war in Ukraine. It includes drastic cuts to the funding of the US war machine, a state within a state. It includes disbanding NATO, which was established to prevent Soviet expansion into Eastern and Central Europe, not wage war around the globe. If Western promises to Moscow not to expand NATO beyond the borders of a unified Germany had been kept, I expect the war in Ukraine never would have happened. Bingo. To those who suffer directly from US aggression, these demands are not academic and theoretical issues. The victims of this militarism do not have the luxury of virtue signaling. That's exactly what I was telling you from a few moments ago. It's a very privileged thing to start cherry picking. Oh, I don't like him because of this. I don't like. Who are you talking about? Adolf Hitler? Okay, if it's Adolf Hitler, I get it. But you're starting to cherry pick and split hairs to break apart the movement, and that's not going to help anyone. That is not helping anyone, and that's such a luxurious thing to do. So they, the victims of US militarism, they want the rule of law to be reinstated and the slaughter stopped. So do I. They welcome any ally who opposes endless war. For them, it is a matter of life and death. If some of those on the right are anti-war, if they also want to free Julian Assange, it makes no sense to ignore them. These are urgent existential issues that, if we do not mobilize soon, could see us slip into a direct confrontation with Russia and perhaps China, which could lead to nuclear war. This is another point I wanted to make, and I'm very happy that Chris had just bring this up, because when we're talking about Libya, Syria, Iran, pick any country the US and NATO have brutalized and attacked. Again, I don't think most people understand what sanctions mean. I don't think they understand what NATO has been doing all of this time since the Soviet Union disappeared. Guess what? They've been destroying the world, and also during the Cold War. But now with Russia, you must understand, you do not have the luxury of cherry picking. You don't have this luxury because a nuclear war concerns everybody. And if you think that this is a joke and it's just fear mongering, oh man, you don't know anything, do you? No. You can go and quote Biden, or you can quote Putin. Both sides are saying we are dangerously close to nuclear war. This is just as bad, if not worse, than the Cold War, which I really thought. Maybe that was naive of me, but I thought that would never happen. I thought, okay, well, there's a lot of crap happening, but I don't think there's going to be any, between Russia and the US again. I was naive, I thought that maybe, well, with China, yeah, but here we are. Of course, the thing is that you have to be concerned with it. You don't have a choice. I've told you this before. Let's look at the resistance, right? The axis of resistance. Who do you have in the axis of resistance? You have Iran, you have Venezuela, you have Syria, you have Yemen, you have Hashd al-Sha'bi, so PMU, you have the Palestinians, Hezbollah. Do these groups have anything in common? They have nothing in common with each other at all, except fighting US imperialism. That is the only goddamn thing they have in common. Syria is a secular Ba'athist country. Iran is a Shia theocracy. The Islamic Revolution, 1979. When in terms of support for Palestine, they absolutely share that value. Opposing US imperialism, yes, but on everything else, if you just put these on paper next to each other, you would think that these countries don't have a lot in common, right? Let's take Venezuela. They always say, oh, Iran is only helping Syria because Bashar al-Assad is a Alawi. He's an Alawite, right? He's a Shia. They don't tell you his wife is Sunni. They don't tell you Hamas, which Iran is also cool with, is Sunni, right? Is Venezuela also a Shia country now? That's why they're giving them fuel. Come on, it's ridiculous. This is elementary, stupid dumbing down of international politics just to brainwash you into thinking, oh, it's just a bunch of Muslims. They're all terrorists. That's what they want you to think. It's nothing to do with that. These countries and groups are working together, even though they have completely different religious and political objectives, because they are fighting one common enemy, which is US and Western imperialism. Let that be an example, right? Do you think everyone in the Venezuelan government agrees with every single thing that the Iranian government does, or do you think Iran agrees with every single thing that Yemen does, or the Syrian government does? Of course not. That's ridiculous. But they're still allied. Let me give you another example. Russia has ties with Israel. Russia was the first. The Soviet Union was the first country in the world to recognize Israel as a state. Syria does not have any ties with Israel. Syria is at war with Israel because Israel is occupying the Golan Heights. Syria wants to free Palestine. If Syria had this kind of stupid thinking that many people are using to break apart the anti-war movement, but saying, I don't like him, I don't like her, she did this and that, nothing would work. if they had this mentality, Syria would say, well, you Russians, you have ties with Israel, so no thanks, we don't want your help in fighting Al-Qaeda. Bye-bye. You're not getting anywhere with that kind of thinking at all. Okay? So I'm sure Iran and Iran and Syria don't like that Russia has ties with Israel, but they're not going to start, ignoring Russia and refusing to build a coalition just because of that. And I'm not saying just because of that, like it's not some misnomer. No, it's very serious, but still. You understand? The UAE, they also have ties with Israel now, right? But they're also doing rapprochement with Syria. When the foreign minister went to Damascus, did Bashar al-Assad snub him? No. They met, and now there's a thawing of relations. You have to be smart about this. You got to be pragmatic. It doesn't mean you have to like everybody. And yes, there are red lines, but the stuff that they're doing to break apart these movements, it's classic FBI tactics. Just make these people fight with each other. Just divide and conquer. That's how they do this. That's how they get you, and you end up doing their work for them without even realizing. Stay focused. Focus on the issue. Again, I don't even know most of the people who are speaking at the US thing. I don't know everybody who's speaking at the London rally. Does that mean I'm not going to go? Of course I'm going to go. Do you think I agree with everybody there? No. I hate all of them. I'm kidding. but seriously, like, I love George Galloway and Chris Williamson and Max and Anya and Claire and Wallace. They're all great, but there's some people I don't know thoroughly. It doesn't change anything because I know what my message is. My message is coherent with the rally. It's no to NATO and it's no to war. And it's not even something confined to Ukraine, right? NATO's been doing a lot of nasty stuff for decades, right? So I'm going to go there and I'm going to deliver my message, and I hope you guys join me. And let's turn this into something good. And I don't know if you guys are in the US, then go to the one in the US if you can. And don't let these COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO is counterintelligence program during the Cold War, which is, again, you can go on the FBI's own website. Don't take my word. Go right now on the FBI's official website, .gov, and look at their files from COINTELPRO, which they've declassified. You can read all of it. They literally talk about how to, in terms of Black Panther Party, or Black Liberation Movement, they just write so casually in the report, like, we need to make up smears about this guy, that he's a pervert or he's a sex addict. We have people sitting outside of his house to harass him when he comes out, to search him and plant drugs on him, to just rough him up and shake him down. Just all kinds of nefarious, disgusting stuff about how to harass activists and pit people inside of groups against each other in order to break them up. It's so disgusting. And even though these files are declassified, the tactics have not changed. You need to understand this. So they're going to do everything they can to trash the rally in Washington and trash the rally in London. Don't let them do that. Don't do their work for them. Okay, focus on the message. Focus on the message. No to NATO, no to war. I'll see you guys on February 25th in central London.